All right, everybody, welcome back in. It is the Rob and Stu show here on the Pulse Sports Network. Go like, subscribe, do the whole deal. Coming up today, we brought him back from popular demand. I mean, the numbers are through the roof. I mean, and we didn't bring him on just to talk about Aaron Rodgers. We're bringing him on to talk some Sweet 16 basketball. It's Erik Haslam, Haslam Metrics. Erik, thanks for coming back on again.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And believe me, no one wants to talk about Aaron Rodgers right now, not even me.
Well, and the least of all is my co-host, who actually, I don't know if you know this, Erik, he's actually dead right now. He's dead man. You're talking to a ghost.
Yeah.
He had, I don't know why he would do it.
The night of February 12th, that was it. It just, I haven't been right since. And
I was referring to Gonzaga.
Gonzaga. That was, I told Stu the other night, my wife was snoring, and I was like, I got to go downstairs. I can't sleep. So I turn on the TV and I'm like, I just need this. I need this. Oh, I need this for the second half of the parlay. It wasn't Gonzaga. It was the TCU game when they made that shot late to cover.
Yes, I got burned on that as well.
Was horrific.
I had the over. I don't know what you guys were doing.
This is, oh my God, the way Strother played in that second half. I got serious. I'm not making accusations here, but I got serious Tony from Blue Chips.
He was my guy.
Man, there were a few plays, and
what did we pay him, Shep?
And this was before the bounce pass. When I saw even up there, I was thinking Tony from Blue Chips, and then he threw the bounce pass, and I'm like, "You've got to be kidding me! Something's wrong here."
I think I saw Nick Nolte at the end of that Virginia game for sure, 100%. He was coaching.
Oh my God.
Incredible. I mean, you talk about that. That is just one of the all-time beats.
Yes. I mean, and they roll it in bounds, and they basically let the ball roll about 60 feet.
Oh, and that was Gonzaga's too. I was thrown off. I was thinking of the Houston game for some reason on Saturday night. Yeah, that was Gonzaga. That was incredible.
I even tweeted, I said, that collective groan you hear and that national groan you hear is the bad beat of all bad beats in that Gonzaga TCU game.
I mean, it is just, we were talking about it last week, but what just an incredible tournament. I mean, really, a lot of it for the gambling, obviously, but just the TV aspect of it. I mean, it is just like
I thought this
weekend, Saturday and Sunday.
This past weekend, Rob, I don't know if we talked about it. This past weekend, I thought was the best in years.
It was phenomenal. I thought, maybe because I had a profitable weekend, even though I took that bad beat. Houston getting me a huge parlay was nice Saturday. The Tennessee win Saturday too. I had them on the money line, but it was a great weekend of hoops.
Yeah, we don't need to bring up Houston anymore. Some people put a second mortgage on Auburn. And so, Erik, do you need anybody to come wash your car or anything? Or?
No, at this point, I got kids who can do that for me. So
okay, well, I mean, if you just think about
that's why I have kids.
How'd you do the first weekend? Was it profitable for you, or
I'm not a big gambler. I dabble here and there. Nothing is ever going to be there's the results that come in for anything that I bet on is never going to be anything major. I'm in this more for the sport. I go out there. These are those that kind of that Christmas morning for a lot of people. It kind of is for me as well. And that we go out there on Thursday morning and Friday morning, and we spend about a grand total of 20 to 22 hours at the bar on those 2 days. and when I'm at 48 now, so that's getting tough to do.
Shout out Rory.
Yeah, he lasted a while at Donovan's on St. Patty's Day.
Right around 2:30 on Friday, I could have just put my head down on the bar and just kind of said so I actually ended up taking a half-hour nap in the car, put the seat all the way back, and slept from 3 o'clock to 3:30. I missed it.
That's what you call a gamer. That's what you call a primetime player. right there. A
it was just enough to get me recharged, kind of like a phone battery getting from 25 to 60. That's all I kind of needed. And then I was good to go. But getting tougher every year.
Next time, maybe you got to mix in like an espresso or a coffee. That's what I do now. I don't even care that it embarrasses people.
And that's the thing.
Right in.
That was the reason we were there at this bar in Verona, Wisconsin, and we're sitting right at the front. And I looked down. I even asked the question, and I said, "Do you guys have coffee?" And they said, "We do have coffee." And my buddy's like, "Get a coffee." I'm like, "Dude, I can't get a coffee at 2:30 in the afternoon on St. Patty's Day in the middle of March Madness." And I so badly wanted one, but I would have been sitting there. They would have probably bought the little saucer with a pattern on the side, and I would have had to drink it with the pinky up.
Well, just from a health perspective, always great when you mix uppers and downers. Hey, let's talk about Thursday. We start off. I mean, the best team in the tournament starts off Thursday.
Goes. Take your 5 minutes.
You talk January, February, Izzo, April. I mean, it's great. It's an exciting game. The line's starting to move towards Michigan State. I think people are buying into this defense has really come together, and you saw glimpses of it over the season. Erik, when you look at Michigan State, from an efficiency metric, I have to imagine that defensively, they've been kind of trending towards what we could call a top 30 status. They've had their hiccups, but a pretty solid defense. The guard play has come together. Joey Hauser's playing like we all thought he would on a piece of paper a few years ago. But they run into a Kansas team with a legit score. And they're a fast, athletic team. Something I don't know that Marquette necessarily is. And it is something that, I don't know. I don't know that Michigan State's encountered the likes of Kansas State yet. What are your thoughts leading off Thursday?
Well, I mean, I think they're starting to trend upward again. They struggled there at the end of the regular season defensively, and in the Big Ten tournament where they kind of recorded 4 straight games in a row with negative efficiency ratings on defense. But they came out and have had double-digit positive ones in the wins over USC and Marquette. I still like them to win that game. The analytics that I run, they have never been big believers on Kansas State. They do have kind of that double alpha with Noel and Keontae. It's a very close game. It's going to be probably the closest game that I have out there. I think they're separated by 26 hundredths of a point. I have Michigan State winning that game. That's actually the team that I had picked. So I kind of do the what the Haslam metric says, and I submit one of those, and then I kind of do one based on what my opinion is. And I never trust Marquette. You can ask my friend Sean Dillon. We've talked for years. Never trust Marquette. And I always joke. And I said it this year again.
That was a good call by you.
I said, guys, don't do it.
You highlighted them on the last week.
And I say, don't do it, guys. You want to do it. I know you want to do it. They're begging you to trust them. Don't trust them. And for the same reason I didn't trust St. Mary's, is that Marquette was not blessed with a ton of, I would say, ability coming into the preseason, where people kind of end up getting rated in the preseason based on their talent level. And then all of a sudden you have teams like St. Mary's and Marquette who play to the maximum level of their abilities throughout the regular season. But in March, when it matters, I always find that these teams, and I'm looking at Arkansas, who has the talent, all of a sudden brings that talent together and takes it to a different level that a team like Marquette and a team like St. Mary's just can't achieve. Not to say that Michigan State has that much more talent than that. It just, on this particular day, it could have gone either way. And, they say it's the month after February is the month of Izzo. So they say that for a reason.
It's been said, Rob.
We're going to edit that out after the show.
Yeah, I know.
I'm going to be in the minority that actually likes Izzo. I could actually, and I'm like, I got so many people I work with. Like, God, I can't stand Izzo. And I'm kind of like,
I don't have a problem with Izzo. He is the nicest, sweetest guy, humble. Like, I got tons of stories, personal interactions with him. Just sweetheart of a guy.
See, I've always been a fan of the coach that, that gets in your face to motivate you. That's kind of what I needed to drive me. That is becoming less and less prevalent nowadays in the year 2023. But the best coaches that I had would chew my ass if I did something wrong, and that motivated me. And I think I would thrive under a guy like Izzo personally. But a lot of people, that kind of coaching mentality is kind of starting to die out a little bit more as we go along.
Rob,
he is a great coach. I mean, he just, like you said, he's got an old school mentality. I actually like him. I just like breaking Stu's balls.
Yeah, better than
Stu has a restraining order or something
saying?
that's going on at Michigan State.
Better than Steve Peichel is what you said, correct?
Actually, the first time that Izzo coached there, he went into the locker room and he told Peichel after the game what a coach he is, and the way Rutgers had played against them. And I was kind of respected Izzo after that. He's I like him. I mean, I just like breaking your balls, even though you have that restraining order against you on the Michigan State campus. But we're not going to get into that. But
please don't.
Erik, I got to get your thoughts here. I love a play Thursday. I'm going to load up. I've been known to place a bet or two every now and again. I love FAU Thursday versus Tennessee. I love them in the spot. I'm taking a money line. I got to get your thoughts here on this game. This is also, too, a great slate of games on Thursday. I think there's some really interesting matchups, but the FAU game is the game I love.
I like FAU. I think they got that luck of the draw by getting FEU in the second round, and sometimes I think that just allows a team, not that they really could skate in that game, but let's face it, it's a lot easier playing in FDU in the second round than it is playing at Purdue in the second round. The concern I have with Tennessee, and I've been critical of Tennessee and kind of along the same lines as Marquette, but for different reasons, more along the same lines as Purdue, just the guys who are snake bitten. Matt Painter is snake bitten. Rick Barnes with Tennessee has been snake bitten. But now I'm starting to think this Tennessee team, it's like buying that new car of the lot. If anything would have gone wrong, it would have gone wrong in the first 15,000 miles, and then you're kind of good for the next 45,000. That's kind of Tennessee. If anything's going to go wrong, it's going to go wrong in that opening weekend, and it did not go wrong. So that's the thing. Tennessee has been, to a lack of a better word, beloved by the metrics throughout the season, even though I've watched them myself and said, Jesus, when that offense just doesn't go, the offense just doesn't go. You can only rely on defense so much. But they finally got over that hump, so to speak. That was kind of the common criticism of Rick Barnes. Oh, he's not going to get out of that first weekend. And even I didn't think he was going to get out of the first weekend. I kind of ended up changing my mind and picking against him in the first round. But here they are. You're playing an FAU team that's very talented, no doubt about it. I don't know what is the spread right now on that one?
5.5.
It's 5.5. It's pretty much stated
it's
that
the
number
deadly, too. The deadly 5.5.
Interesting. I've got it at 4. So I might be inclined to follow you on the FAU side of things. I don't know if I'd go money line, but I don't know. I may just stay away. It just feels to me like Tennessee was that team that needed to get over that first weekend hump. And now that they've done it, it kind of goes against everything you expect of them. It's kind of like North Carolina last year. I said they were too inconsistent to trust. I said they can't get out of the first weekend because they're too inconsistent to trust. Even if they win that first game last year, I remember saying, well, they're going to either lose to Marquette or they're going to beat Marquette and they're going to lose to Baylor. And they got through them both. And once you got through over that hump, off they went. Tennessee theoretically could do the same thing here this year.
Yeah, it's good. There's some great matchups. Quick thoughts too, even though I know we're talking a lot about Thursday's slate, but Gonzaga and UCLA, I got to try to stay up for this. It's tough because I get up early, but Gonzaga, UCLA, I think this is going to be an awesome game.
Yeah, this is the third time in 3 years. I think, UCLA lost by 20 last year, and then there was the Classic 2 years ago where they lost in overtime on the Jalen Suggs 3. Great teams. It's really an interesting clash. I mean, it's a tough one because going into the tournament, if you look at my brackets, I had Gonzaga going, I believe, to the Final Four. And after the tournament started, UCLA jumped them in my rankings. So now UCLA is my number 1 team. But it's hard to bank on UCLA just because of the Jalen Clark loss. That's still one of the things that concerns me. I don't know about the health of David Singleton. All reports right now are, I'm completely fine. I'm walking without a limp. But when your foot goes sideways, I mean, I know these are young kids and all, but that just doesn't heal overnight. Granted, he's going to have a few days to get past that, but you're playing a Gonzaga team that is top 5 in the country, I think, in momentum for me. They've just been on a roll, and maybe they finally hit that roadblock. I know they're finally going to play a team that has a lot of balance. Gonzaga's biggest weakness is very similar to Baylor in a certain way, and that they're all offense, and there's questionable defense. We saw pieces of that in the TCU game where I'm like, God, if they could just play defense, this is easily a Final Four team. But that's always been my concern. So this is going to be a tough one. The analytics now say UCLA because they are my number 1 team. Now, keep in mind that takes the entire season's body of work into account. It doesn't account proactively for the loss of Clark. It doesn't proactively take into account, a potential Singleton injury, things like that. The spread that I have, the projected raw spread, is less than a point in favor of UCLA. So this really could go either way.
Yeah, and the line really went up a little bit. It opened in most books at 1.5 Gonzaga, as the underdog, and now it's floated up to, UCLA is given 2.5. So
yeah,
it's pretty much state. That's what you'll pretty much get. But yeah, that's going to be an awesome matchup. I remember you saying last week on the show, Gonzaga was coming in hot, and the way UCLA has played with Cronin, I think he's kind of brought that toughness to UCLA a little bit.
Yes.
I don't want to say wasn't there, but that's the way he was at Cincinnati, I always thought. And I don't know, they just kind of got a little bit of that swagger, which is, not always in the Pac-12. You always think of the Pac-12 not like that.
Right, yeah.
Now we move on to Friday's games, and I don't know, Stu, what stands out to you on Friday? There's some great matchups here.
I'm not – see, Thursday's card is so much more interesting to me. I think Alabama should roll, pardon the pun. Shout out John Frazier. Shout out Bobcat. I'm not a San Diego State guy. For the teams they've beaten, I think they got a great draw. I'm really dubious of the Mountain West. Real dubious. I think that form has kind of fallen off. I mean, really, Houston, Sasser looked like he was healthy. Miami, Florida should have lost to Drake. Should have really lost to Drake. I mean, that was you want to talk about
that was horrific.
Yeah, horrific,
terrible
performance. I mean, Drake picked the wrong night of the season to not shoot. Creighton should walk over Princeton. I mean, at this point, this Creighton team is legit good. We've been saying it since the beginning of the year. I look at that Xavier Texas game. I don't really know what to do there. Vegas is telling you. I mean, they're hammering Texas here. I'd like to get your thoughts. We saw Xavier barely pull it out against Kennesaw State.
Yeah.
And then come right back and just dominate a Pittsburgh team that I say what you will, but they certainly had momentum coming into the game. But Xavier just dominated them. How do you look at that game, Eric?
Well, Xavier, I think everybody, I shouldn't say everybody is picking Texas. It's a really popular Final Four pick, but, you got to remember that Houston is in that bracket as well. Evenly split between those two. The analytics like Houston. I personally picked Texas to win that region. But Xavier's a team that is another team I kind of didn't expect to be here, just because I thought the Fremantle injury would have kind of a Kalkbrenner-esque effect to it.
Yeah, sure.
And it kind of didn't. They really have maintained their level of play. I think they ended up beating Creighton by like 22 in the Big East tournament or something like that. I forget what it was, but they had a big win down the stretch there. It's a different animal playing Texas. This is a better Texas team than we've seen in past seasons. I have it by Texas by about 3 in this one, 3 or 3.5. I will probably stick with that. I still don't believe that Xavier is that team who can make a run to the Final Four, strictly because, again, there's so much offense and the defense is just not elite enough to be a championship team, in my opinion. So I'm probably going to lean Texas on this one.
Yeah, I thought they got a real favorable matchup there in the second game there versus Pitt. I thought Pitt had kind of had just reached their level, right? Like I thought that was the best they were going to play when they won. And I don't know, it just seemed like the perfect storm. Houston was funny to me. I was out at a party Saturday, but I was trying to keep an eye on the game, and they really struggled in that first half. I mean, they were down 10 at the half, and then
holy
all
moly.
of a sudden,
when they're not
all
playing,
of a sudden,
when
that
they're not
second
playing
half,
a horrible team, and this is Houston all year. They're not playing your Tulsas, your East Carolinas, your Northwestern states. It's going to be a tight first half. But whatever Calvin Sampson does at halftime, I don't know if it's a Santeria thing or whatever he's doing in that locker room, they're coming out and they just dominate. And Sasser looked healthy. Sneed or Shed. I'm thinking the wide receiver for the Saints. Shed, who had some injury concerns. I mean, he played a little bit. I think an extra week of getting those guys a little bit closer to healthy, you're just getting Houston a little bit better. And this Miami team is not good. I'm going to say this Miami team is not
good offense.
Oh, yeah. Very good offense.
Sure. But
good guards.
I'm talking team totality.
Yeah.
They should have lost to Drake.
Well, that was one of the games I talked about where I said that everything was screaming Drake in that game, and they hung with them all. And it's credit to Larinaga. I love Larinaga. I think Larinaga
he's great. Yeah.
And he's another guy I think that just gets the most out of his players. But man, if you're talking, the reason everything screamed Drake was you talk about the difference between offensive efficiency and defensive efficiency. We've talked about it we saw it with Baylor, we've seen it with Xavier, we've seen it to a degree with Gonzaga, but nothing was more extreme than Miami, and Miami is still outside my top 100 in defensive efficiency, if I'm not mistaken. Again, that just doesn't typically get you to the Final Four. That's going to trip you up sooner than later. You're talking about a
Drake team, 10 turnovers in the game, 29% from three, 40% overall from field goals. But, I mean, the U got 29 free throws.
Yeah,
they got 29 free throw attempts, and really, look, if Drake doesn't foul, if they commit like 4 or 5 fouls less, they win the game.
The last 5 minutes of that game, that was
it's brutal. Good. And then they go on, and they beat an overrated Indiana team,
right?
Which we all agree on. I don't know. I feel like Houston, if they're anywhere near healthy, they will present a huge problem and Miami showed it when they play a defense that can do something much like their football team. They struggle.
Yeah, and I think Houston to a certain degree offsets that backcourt I love the backcourt of Miami of Wong and Miller and Pack. But with Houston, you're just not going to get much of an advantage. They just have the athletes on that team that can compete. I don't think that was so much the case with Indiana, and that certainly wasn't the case with Drake.
Erik, I'll have to ask you as we wind it down. I'll give you a non-basketball question coming up, but Roberto, if you got a basketball question, I'll let you have that. But give me your thought on what the most surprising outcome you think this weekend's going to yield. And if you want to say Vanderbilt winning the NIT, I mean, that's fine too. But shout out Scottie Pippen.
Should I give Wisconsin a plug in the NIT? And I don't want to bore people.
Don't do that to yourself.
Well, so here's the one that's going to be interesting is I'm kind of torn on this game because thanks to Eli Hershkovitz, made a little Final Four bet on Arkansas before the tournament started. The problem is they're facing the team that in my bracket of integrity, I have UConn going all the way. So I'm in one bracket pool with a bunch of people, and I am the only one that has UConn winning the whole thing. So in that way, I'm kind of like, well, I want them to do well. But then there's the other one, the Arkansas wager that can get, if I can get Arkansas to the Final Four, that may actually pay off much better. So I'm kind of torn on that one. I would not be surprised Arkansas is that team that I talked about. I always said there's always like a team, it seems, that either has like a mid-major, core of really great players or one alpha, and I was like thinking Cameron Krutwig from Loyola Chicago, or it's a team that has struggled throughout the season, but has a sky-high ceiling. And I was thinking, and I think I may have mentioned on this very podcast, that's 3 teams. It's Duke, it's Kentucky, it's Arkansas. And 2 of them are gone. So that leaves Arkansas. And when you think of it, you got lottery picks on this team. You got the talent there. If they can come over, you got a great coach in Musselman. If they come together and pull this off, they're one win away from the Final Four. Definitely have the talent to get there. I would not be surprised one bit to see Arkansas pull that game off against UConn. I'm kind of hoping against it because I want UConn to do well. But outside of that, I'm not. I know you're not a San Diego State fan, but San Diego State, in the same vein with Barnes, Dutcher has finally figured out how to win in the last 4 minutes of a game. Could they pull off an upset over Alabama? I think they could. I went on San Diego radio a couple weeks ago. They said, "How far do you think San Diego can go?" I said, "I think they can go a long, long way. I think if they can get over that hump, which has been stopping them in the past, they can go a long, long way." Now they're going to have a spectacular effort against Alabama. That Mountain West, it's hard to trust them again. I understand that, but the San Diego State team has been a different animal than the rest of that Mountain West this year. They're far better than anybody else who was in the tournament there.
I would say, looking back on San Diego State and their season, I just look at them, and again, it comes to their scoring output. Can they play solid defense? Sure. But it's going to be hard to stop an Alabama. Brandon Miller didn't score a single point the other in one of the games. They still win running away. I think I don't know. To me, it's just, I see Nevada. I see what happened to Boise State. It's just, I get so scared.
It's really interesting how like the Mountain West and the Big Ten. I mean, the Big Ten, you can say, well, people will say the Big Ten did what they were expected to do. Okay, Purdue lost and Indiana lost early, but
Michigan
everybody else
State's in the Sweet 16.
So they offset it, but I'm like, I still say you're a Big Ten. You have one team in the Sweet 16. That's not cutting it, in my opinion, if you're the Big Ten. And then the Mountain West, I've gone to bat for the Mountain West. I put a little wager on Utah State, believed in them. The metrics believed in them, and they just went out there and, oh my God, could they miss more shots in that opening round game? It was just painful to watch. Some teams just melt under the lights, and Utah State did.
The Big Ten too is, my dad's had this theory for a long time watching the Big Ten basketball. Like, he feels like they're just too slow when they get to this tournament. The way they play, they just can't keep up with the scoring a lot and the shooting. Do you believe that?
I think there's a certain amount of truth to it. I mean, where there's smoke, there's fire. And I think it's kind of a common, kind of complaint that kind of leaks into basketball from football. People talk about football and say, well, the Big Ten isn't just as good as the SEC. The SEC has athletes. In the Big Ten, it doesn't matter how good you are and how big you are. Eventually, you need some athletes. And you can argue and say that was the case with Purdue, as I talked about. I was like, one of the things I didn't trust about Purdue, even though they had the fingerprint of that top 10 offense, top 35 defense, was in the past that they relied too much on Zach Edey. And Zach Edey has made leaps and bounds with finesse, but he kind of reverted back to the old Zach Edey. We saw he mishandled the ball. The guards did not have experience, and Lawyer and Smith did not play particularly well in that game, obviously. Yeah. I mean, you're playing against it. I mean, obviously is an understatement. They literally got shut down by a team who was 10th worst in Division I in defensive efficiency. How do you get shut down by a team that is 354th?
Lost, came in third in the regular season in the worst conference, bar none.
How does that happen?
You watch the NEC this year. I mean, you want to talk about AIDS incarnate. That's the NEC. That's the basketball.
Right.
It's horrific.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like you look at this and you see certain elements of those teams there, and you'd be like, that's why people can't get behind them. They just don't have the athletes that you're going to get out of the SEC usually. And so I think it's a common complaint, and to a certain degree a valid one, in saying that they just don't have the athletes to compete at that high level. I think we've seen enough of it now that, 1 year may happen, all of a sudden next year they put 5 in the Sweet 16. We've seen weird things like that happen, but it feels like there's some truth to that.
Is Zach Edey, George Mirasan? Your thoughts?
Yeah.
Call the hotline. Rob, what's your question to take us home here?
Question or play?
You can do either, my friend.
Okay,
your
well,
name's
my,
on the show.
my play is I love the Michigan State K-State under. I like the under. I think
dare.
Michigan State can do a good job. I think how Michigan State, if they're going to win the game, how they're going to win it is they're going to shut down that offense. I think they've been playing good defense. I just like the under in this game, 137.5. I feel like the under is an easy play. It's the first game. Then I'm going FAU money line. Like I told you, me and Eric were talking. I love FAU. And I kind of like Gonzaga getting 2.5 in that spot. I think it's going to be a tight game. I think UCLA could win it easily, but I think it'll be by 2 points. I think you're going to get a game right down to the wire. I think 2.5 is the main number in that game. You got to get the hook. You have to, even if you want to buy it up to 3. But probably 3 is a better number, obviously. But 2.5, I feel fine with that. Those are my favorite plays. Thursday slate is just awesome. Not that I'll be watching and gambling on Friday, but Thursday slate is where it's at.
I'm with you on FAU. I agree. I'll say my 3 are Connecticut. I think they keep the train rolling. A smart man once said they hit that magic mark of top 30 offense and defense efficiency. Smart man said that. I'm following them. And then I'm taking Alabama Roll Tide. And I will also be taking. Creighton just destroys Princeton. I mean, the storybook ending ends.
I don't know. I'm wondering about that game. I'm thinking last year was kind of the same thing a lot of people said about St. Peter's, and all of a sudden that first game on that second weekend, they got the Boilermakers. Maybe Creighton.
As I'm wearing a St. Peter's shirt.
Maybe Creighton is going to be this year's Boilermakers.
I never liked Arizona. And Missouri was a paper tiger.
Oh, yeah, Arizona.
That pun is intended, by the way.
Go. Now he knows.
Arizona was. Oh my God! How the
Arizona? I refuse to believe Arizona's good coming into the tournament. I had them losing in the second round.
Did they just make Tubelis into a manager for like the last 7 minutes of that game or something? Oof. There are a lot of people asking that question. I'm like, is Tubelis? And I'm looking up there because I'm watching a bunch of games. And I'm sitting there with friends. We're socializing, and I look up, and this is falling apart. And I'm looking. I'm like, did Tubelis foul out with like 6 to play? Where's Tubelis? And I go to Twitter, and there's people like, where the hell is Tubelis? And I'm like, I have no idea what the deal was.
You know what was amazing in that game? Like I was doing stuff around the house, and I kept looking back, and I'm like, God, they're just hanging around in this game. They're hanging around in this game. Like I think that Arizona's biggest lead was like 9 or 7 the whole game. Yeah. And then to me, Arizona just tightened up so much in those last 3 minutes. You could tell it was like, this is happening. Like this team is, we have a legit shot to lose this game. I don't know. It just.
There was a lid on the rim. Really? They just cannot get anything to go down. And, I don't know. Maybe, again, we're talking athleticism. Is this the most athletic team you're seeing out there? And, I mean, great example. FDU was, in my opinion, looked more athletic than Purdue did. So,
yeah.
I don't know.
Well, we're going to wrap it up here. Real quickly, though, Eric, how much love do you have for Jordan Love? Your thoughts?
Well, Jordan Love, I have a lot of love for Jordan Love because it's kind of, I'll say this about Jordan Love, and granted the sample size is rather small, but if you're a Packer fan, you remember that game in 07. Anybody remembers Aaron Rodgers before 07 would say, remember, I think it was before the 07 season or before the 06 season, they were trying to trade him to the Raiders, and it involved something with Kabir Bajabia-Miller or something like that, and it never came to fruition. But everything up until 07, if you saw Aaron Rodgers in the preseason, you'd say, oh my God, he's terrible. He's never going to pan out. Then that game happened in 07 when the Packers are playing. Favre goes down against Dallas in Dallas in a very important game on the NFL Network. And Rodgers comes in, and he's just playing at a different level. Fast forward 15 years to last season when I think it was at the Philly game.
Yeah, I was there. Yeah. He had a nice touchdown pass to Watson.
And granted, it was late in the game, but man, some of those throws that he made, everybody said, oh my God, this is the Rodgers 07 in Dallas right there. Now, granted, smaller sample size, but that was a small sample size as well. But I think that excited a lot of people. He threw with confidence. He had pinpoint precision. The confidence is something that he never really had. It seems like all of a sudden he may have, finally developed that. And I think it's just gotten to the point where it's time to find out. Enough of this kicking this can down the road. I think it's time to make the clean break, similar to what Indianapolis did with Peyton Manning, got him off to Denver. Fare thee well. He went on and won a Super Bowl. Maybe Rodgers does the same thing with the Jets. But I think we've gotten to that point now. The Packers got to find out what we have. He's ready. If he, give him the ball. If he fails, but it's time.
I think you're right. They're one of the best run organizations in sports. I mean, they've had two quarterbacks over the last, 30 years. I mean, You're right. He's 39 years old. To me, I still think he has a little juice in his arm. I think the Jets have a ready-win team, but I don't blame Green Bay. After a certain point, you're paying him $60 million. You're not really allowed, with that kind of money, you can't go out and build the rest of the team. He's had his years there. He's had his great runs, but I don't blame them. You have this kid you drafted in the first round. It's time to see it. It's time to see, is he going to be the quarterback or are they going to be drafting somebody different? I don't blame them at all. I think it's the right move.
Yeah, he's just never been quite that fit for Green Bay. Favre was more the fit. In Wisconsin, we love the country bumpkin guy. But Rodgers was the Cali kid. And, one thing, Favre pissed me off. Don't get me wrong. What he did in 08 and 09 really pissed me off. And I've since forgiven him for that whole thing with the Vikings. But with Rodgers, the thing I can say about Favre is he never dressed anybody down on the field. That's the one thing that always bothered me about Rodgers is, and I've seen this with people. I mean, if you've hung around very smart people, go find people who score 32s and 33s on their ACTs. They probably don't have a lot of patience for the normal individuals because they're just at a different higher level intellectually. And I think Rodgers is that, but you got to learn patience. And that's something that he has never truly been able to learn. He expects people to rise to his level. And the fact of the matter is that a lot of people just can't do that. And I think it probably has cost him, trying to be too good sometimes, trying to be a surgeon, not having enough cowboy in him, I think on occasion has cost him.
So what I take from both of you gentlemen is that the Motor City Kittens will win the North this year. It's about time. 33 years, gentlemen.
Super Bowl.
Some are saying Super Bowl.
I think they're ready for another 0-16 campaign. I'm ready for another 0-16. Come on.
Yeah, you're due. 0-16 is more likely than a Super Bowl. But on that sad, depressing note, I'm going to go start my car in my garage. We'll be back next week. All new show here. Until then, take care. Brush your hair. Check out HaslamMetrics.com. Get ready for the games. And we'll see you after a while.